All right, let's say that you sit down with the intention of spending the next 10 or 15 or 20 minutes in a meditation session, and it just doesn't work. Your mind is racing. You might be agitated or irritated or angry. You might be worried about something or someone. This happens to everybody, anyone who's ever spent any time doing meditation on a regular basis. And today, we're going to discuss 5 of the best techniques to use to overcome roadblocks that inevitably are going to occur in the process of meditation. Hi, I'm Steve from Steve White Yoga, bringing you the application of yoga to manage your health, improve your relationships, and balance your life. Come on with me and let's take a look at today's session. What I thought I would do this week, for those of you who are joining who are uninitiated, welcome. And we're talking about mindfulness and its relationship with yoga, which is a very intricate and intimate one. And mindfulness is a particular style of meditation practice that has a lot to do with just sort of sitting and observing in your own space and in your own time. And a regular mindfulness practice has lots of support, even in Western scientific terms, for actually altering our physiology, changing the way our brains work. So it's well supported in science. It's been done in the Eastern world for thousands of years. And this week, I'm directing what we're talking about, at least, to people who have had perhaps a little bit of experience already in seated meditation practice. So if this is new to you or it's just a curiosity, it may or may not have relevance. If it doesn't have relevance right now, if you do any meditation at all, it will. So I've chosen to use the word roadblocks. Some people will say obstacles, but anybody who meditates at any level, whether it's your first day or whether you've been doing it for a good portion of your life, everyone experiences distractions. And sometimes the distractions are minor and irritations, and sometimes they're incredibly potent and literally, like drive us off of the mat or the cushion or the chair or whatever it is we're working with in meditation. So it's important to approach this stuff with a degree of dedication and seriousness, certainly, but also with a degree of playfulness. And I think, it doesn't have to be playful in the sense of being unserious. I made up a word. But it shouldn't necessarily be rigid or inflexible in our approach to our seated meditation practice. So the fundamental message here is that we can relieve ourselves of this notion of, there being sort of a right or wrong to this. It's our duty in mindfulness, if you will, to devote ourselves to having an experience and then just allow that experience to unfold as it will. But sometimes it's a struggle to sit. And I've been doing this for a long time. I just had a day sometime in the past few days that I don't even remember the reason, but there was something going on either in my mind or my life or both. And I literally couldn't sit. And I tried for the, kind of shortest term of what a typical practice is for me. And I actually gave up. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad conclusion to reach. It's not an opportunity to let us off the hook, but it's an opportunity to recognize that reality is reality, and there will be occasions from time to time where there is not really anything productive going on by devoting ourselves on a particular day, in a particular moment, to mindfulness. So we're just going to talk today and on Thursday as well about what some of the options might be to do with that. So to remind ourselves, I can't believe this quote is anonymous, but at least where I picked it up on the internet, it wasn't attributed to anyone. The goal of meditation isn't to control your thoughts, it's to stop letting them control you. So I think it's always important to, sort of keep the end in mind. Um, and I think there's this mistake, even when people have been told as they begin into a mindfulness practice, there's the mistake of believing that somehow you're going to stop your thoughts. And if you have that moment or moments of sort of complete stillness, then it's like, oh, there it is. I found it. And then you never achieve it again for, another week or another year or another decade. So, although it's lovely if you have that experience of being able to kind of have a cessation of thoughts for a moment, but it's not really what we're trying to accomplish here. And there are certainly forms of meditation where that is the goal, but let's just save that for a different class and a different set of principles. So we're not trying to be uber meditators. We're trying to simply cultivate a mental skill, just like any other skill in life. So part of that is to be able to sort of sit back, and in those moments where we're incredibly distracted in whatever fashion, to sort of sit back and say, and chuckle really, and just say, yep, there it is, there's the distraction. And that distraction might last for a few minutes, it might last for an entire practice, it might last for a few days or even weeks in some cases. But the idea is that we keep coming back to the cushion and doing the best we can, no matter what mind it is that we have brought to our practice at any given point in time. So restlessness is a natural byproduct of this process, and feeling distracted, feeling disconnected, or just feeling like pulled in too many directions in your head. It is a common result, and it seriously sort of endangers our ability to engage with our thoughts. So I think I've got one more quote here. This has something to do with what we're talking about today. I just love this. I don't think I've used it before. It's from that great meditator of all meditators, Julia Child. I'm kidding. She says, if you drop the lamb, pick it up. Who'll know? Which is to say, again, sort of give yourself a break. If your practice doesn't have the expectation in terms of what's going on while you're sitting that you thought it would, you're the only one that knows, and nobody else cares. And it doesn't make you a bad person or a bad meditator. You just kind of go with what you get. So give yourself permission to be fallible, to be less than whatever your expectation might have suggested. We all are going to have expectations as to what we would like our practice to be, or what we had yesterday or last week. Every moment is a new moment. Every day is a new dawn, right? So as my teacher, or one of my teachers, Gary Kraftsow, says, what's stronger, your habits or your intentions? Suggesting that when you sit, you may have an intention of your practice being a certain thing, and yet you have this stuff going on up here inside of your head that is a instrument of habit, and that instrument may have other ideas in mind for you rather than sort of settling into a practice. So sometimes feeling like your mind is too active, you might feel agitated, like you need more entertainment than what the practice is offering. These kinds of things and many others can become roadblocks. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do. And I've just put together 5 things, and they're not the only 5. They're just 5 that have worked for me and that I've used from time to time. And the first one is this. If your phone is in the neighborhood and it's distracting you, throw it out the window, put it in the next room, carry it to the furthest reaches of your house, set it down, turn it off, turn the volume off, and get away from it. The power of the phone in kind of current society is incredibly strong, and it is not everybody has this experience, but I think most people have the experience of when you're bored, when you're irritated, when you're agitated, when you're nervous, when you're stressed. The phone is one of those things that we tend to go to right away. So if it's becoming such an obstacle that it's truly disrupting the process of meditation, then my first thought is leave it in the other room. A second idea is that I say if you have a story, write it down. So I've encouraged before having a notebook or a diary or some kind of a journal or something close at hand. And one purpose for that is to because sometimes insights will come up that just it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe I just figured this out. The other reason to do it is because sometimes we have stories. And I think you can probably relate to this. Something happens in your life and you might be upset or worried or irritated or angry or frustrated or whatever it might be. And when you go to sit for practice, you're carrying that story into the room with you, and it festers. It kind of goes on autopilot and goes over and over and over again. And it's, oh yeah, this, and oh yeah, what about that? So emptying is a really powerful way to sort of deal with this when it happens. So it's good to have a notebook near you. Computers or electronic products for doing it are not forbidden, but there is, from a psychological perspective, some magic in actually writing something down with a pencil or pen. And so oftentimes spending your meditation session, just getting something out on paper is one of the most productive things that you can possibly do, not just for the meditation, but for the issue, whatever it might be. And I've used this a ton of times in my life and found it to be of great effect and really, mentally a healthy thing to do. So third, if it's monkey mind, that's in quotes, change it up. So this is sort of a Buddhist term that I've borrowed, monkey mind. Monkey mind is a mind that is just going. It just is like absolutely out of control. Like the gas pedal is down, somebody's let go of the wheel, and it doesn't matter what you do, it just keeps running. And you sort of can't get it tamed. You can't get it drawn in. In the Buddhist tradition, they would describe it as trying to tame the wild horse. So if you have that as your issue, then if you're using a guided meditation, for instance, that is a recorded meditation where somebody's walking you through it or talking you through it, you might put it on silent and see if that makes a difference. I wouldn't do too much in a single session switching around meditations, because you can spend your whole meditation session sort of exploring a different meditation. If you aren't using a guided meditation, sometimes having a voice to sort of guide you can reel you back in. Using our anchors that we've talked about before, the breath, sensation, or sound, those are also excellent guides or excellent ways to perhaps shift a little bit. So if you're using the breath, maybe you switch to sound or you switch to sensation. And then a moving meditation, I mean, this is part of the foundation of yoga, is, the practice of asana, or the movement practice of yoga from its beginnings was part of the meditative process. So we do a style, and I teach when life is normal on Tuesday nights, a class called Vini Yoga, in which it's essentially a portion of the class is asana, is movement, but it's an internally focused kind of a process. So Tai Chi does the same thing. The last suggestion under number 3 here is taking a walk. That's also can be a moving meditation, as long as it's mindful. As long as you have an intention and you keep away the distractions that you can, and you use the opportunity or the experience to sort of root yourself in the moment. So there's that. I don't think there's anything wrong occasionally with shortening a practice. Now, if your practice is only like 5 minutes in the first place, I'm not sure that it's helpful to shorten it to 4. I would say stick with the 5. But if you're doing a longer practice, like it isn't uncommon for me to do a seated 20-minute practice. And sometimes I'm convinced after 10 or 15 minutes that I've had enough. I don't think it gives us permission to do that every time, because that sort of defeats the purpose of establishing the discipline. But if you have the discipline in general and you're just having an off day, then by all means shorten the practice. But if you shorten your practice every day and it's supposed to be 10 minutes and every day it turns into 6, don't fool yourself and say you're doing a 10-minute practice. And then the last one, which is sort of a last resort, is abandoning ship, which is to say to stop practicing. And I say this happens only after some effort. You could equate it to the idea of, if you're having a restless night, and you're laying in bed and you're trying to sleep and you're counting sheep and you're doing whatever you do, you're following your breath or whatever, and no matter what you do, nothing works. To get up and go in the other room and read or something like that is a last resort. It may be the best thing. And there's a discrimination, what they call viveka in the tradition. It means discrimination. There's a discrimination that has to take place. So the idea is not to be completely liberal with this. And as I said, always let yourself off the hook. But the idea is to recognize that there are times where it just ain't working. And there are some disciplines in the meditation world that would say it doesn't matter what happens, you do your practice for the prescribed time. I, in my own practice, have developed the mindset that I'm generally disciplined, but specifically, if it just isn't working for me, I'm willing to give myself a break. So those are my thoughts. And I think, yes, we are ready to do a practice. And we're going to do one, if you've been around with us for a while, we have done this practice a number of times, not a number of times, we've done it once before, excuse me, we've just done it once before. It's called coming back to the hub. So I'd ask you to settle into your seat, get comfortable. And as you do, allow your eyes to close, or if you're a little braver, you could just soften your focus. Center it on something in front of you. That's also a legitimate way, although I think more difficult for most people. So the hub, as a representation, is our place of peace. It's our place of presence. And the idea is that your attention rests in the hub momentarily, and then something will begin to distract it, and the attention will start to work its way out into the spokes. And then our job is to notice that and draw it back into the hub. And recognize that sometimes our attention will take us out into the spokes, and then we have that story, that really sticky, gooey story that just won't leave. And then we're out in the perimeter. We're in the wheel. And we're spinning around in the wheel. And we have to find our opportunities to sort of draw that back in through one of the spokes, come back to the hub, and settle in again. So distractions of everyday life always take us away. And they may take us away every few seconds, certainly every few minutes for most minds, and out into the spokes. But today we'll use the anchors once again to draw us back in. So take a few full breaths. And then come to the hub. So that might be your breath. It might be sensation in the hands, fingers, maybe even sensation in the toes or feet. And it might be sound. So I'm going to give you a few moments to settle in on one of those, sound, sensation, breath, and just acquaint your mind with it. As you do, you will no doubt notice that for a moment or more permanently, your mind will take its own course out into the spokes. So, our process is just to notice that, draw it back into the hub. As our mind takes on these other experiences away from the anchor, you might take a moment once you notice that your mind has become distracted to say yes to whatever that experience is. Just give it a silent mental yes, I recognize you, and then come back to the hub. You might notice that as your mind takes you out into the spokes, that there is some um, some power, some force attached to it. It might be emotion. It might just be sort of the strength of the mental energy that you expend as your mind takes you away. And again, just invite that. Say yes, acknowledge, and then gently draw your awareness back and come back to the hub. Remember that we're just doing a process in which we're training the mind. And in doing so, we're recognizing that it's okay to have experience. It's okay to have thoughts. It's okay for those thoughts to be accompanied by emotion. What we're working toward is to recognize that we can remove ourselves from the power, from the force of that emotion, from the force of that story, and return to the hub. As we continue this process, you might find something that is really juicy. And it's almost like your mind is insisting, it's taking you out to the wheel, and it wants to involve you in this whole drama, this whole analysis, this whole continuation. Our process is to recognize that is occurring, and then gently step our way back to the hub. no matter how many times we have to re-engage. Appreciating that our minds naturally want to move and that the process of retraining takes consistent effort. We're not graded. If we drop the lamb, we just pick it back up, draw back to the hub, and settle once again. Sometimes the mind will be insistent and say, I don't like the hub. It's much more interesting where I want to go. And we sit back and chuckle, understanding it's a natural part of the process, and gently guide it back to the hub. About another minute of engaging in this process of finding the hub, settling into the anchor, and noticing and allowing when the mind moves. All right, go ahead and relax your effort. I hope you found value in today's session. For more great videos on mindfulness, meditation, and yoga beyond the mat, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. You can also find additional information on stevewhiteyoga.com. Until next time, keep on breathing.